Let's talk about Tom Girardi, Erika Jayne's estranged husband. So, a court has now determined that Tom Girardi is fit to stand trial. This was reported by the LA Times this week. They claimed that a government expert examined Tom Girardi and determined that he's mentally fit to go before a jury, which means he's going to have to be held accountable for his crimes, which means he could potentially go to prison. I know before it was like, oh, well, they're not going to charge somebody that's mental. They can't charge somebody that's mentally unfit to stand trial. Like, they can't, what are they going to do? Lock him up in the loony bin? Like, there was concern about whether or not he was going to be held accountable. Now it looks like he's actually going to be moving forward. So his legal team has remained adamant that he does have Alzheimer's and he does have dementia. They claim to have had him evaluated. They have a diagnosis, a formal diagnosis for him. Unclear what this specific government expert, what their examination of Tom determined or what it consisted of. I mean, we know what it determined. It determined his competency, but we don't know what they actually did to come to this conclusion because Tom's legal team had parts of it redacted and it was filed under seal. So big chunks of it, since it was redacted, it means that big chunks of it have been blacked out with information that the public does not have access to. Unclear why it was redacted. I would imagine there are certain things his legal team doesn't want out, or possibly certain tests or certain information that he revealed that the legal team doesn't want out or made public. So there are parts of it that are redacted that make it hard to understand what the evaluation was or how this particular expert came to this conclusion. But their findings are pretty much unknown at this point, aside from the fact that whatever it was that they did find, they concluded that Tom is okay to move forward in front of a jury. His legal team's expected to file their own motion regarding his competency later this month. They'll have to lay out, I'm assuming that they're going to lay out their case and provide some sort of like diagnostic findings from their own experts and doctors on Tom's competency, because I assume they're going to try to prove that he really does have Alzheimer's and dementia and that, this isn't just a ruse and that this is real. We'll have to wait and see. As of now, there's a hearing set for August 3rd. Lots of people are coming out claiming that this proves that Erika was in on it and she was trying to deceive us by telling us that Tom was mentally unfit. And I'm just like, listen, from what she's revealed, it appears that Tom does have some sort of cognitive decline that has been documented for a while. I've always been skeptical about the severity of that cognitive decline, though, right? Because like my hesitancy was always the speed at which his cognition started to decline once the allegations came out and it became public what he was doing for so long. And listen, I had on Max Lugavere and Dr. Will Cole on the podcast. We talked a bit about it, and they've both determined that that's not really common for them to see people that progress with Alzheimer's or dementia that rapidly. We also had Daniel Feruzin, who interviewed Tom Girardi just a few months, I think it was 3 months before the shit hit the fan. I believe he was interviewed in October and everything, came to a head in December. In his October interview, he seemed pretty fine. He seemed a little, Daniel Feruzin, I do have that interview up on the podcast and on YouTube. And, Daniel is very clear that there were some things that you could tell there were signs of aging, but not to the degree that we're now hearing. So that's where my skepticism has always come in. I just felt like it developed very quickly as he was immediately ruled incompetent. So I was always a little uncertain of how genuine he and his legal team were being with his diagnosis. It's possible that he does have early signs of Alzheimer's and early signs of dementia, but I don't think that I'm still skeptical of the severity of it, and I don't think that Erika is trying to protect him. I believe she believes that his cognition has progressed to this level, maybe on some level, right? I don't think she has any reason to protect him now. Her life is in shambles because of this man. She's fighting off lawsuits because of this man, and he's hiding in an old folks' home. So I don't think she has any loyalty to him anymore. Maybe there's some sort of trauma bond. Maybe there's some sort of guilt that she has for even leaving him. But listen, she had to phone a friend. She called her friend Wilkes. Was it Jim Wilkes, who lives out in Florida? He's the one that everyone keeps thinking is her boyfriend. He's not her boyfriend. I believe he's married. He has been a longtime friend of theirs. of Tom and Erika's, and he helped Erika leave. He gave her, some money. He helped her move out. He gave her a life raft when the Titanic was going down. And so I think the fact that she had to secretly move out and file for divorce, I don't believe the divorce is a sham. I believe he kept her in the dark for most of their marriage, and for the most part, just in terms of like how he was making the money. I don't believe. Listen, a guy that's that older, that's that old school, that's deceiving people and taking that much money or embezzling that much money. And the allegations against him, it's 18 million with the charges against him right now. He's being charged in Los Angeles and in Chicago. And right now it's a total of 18 million that they've been able to link that they believe he embezzled. And that's what the trial will ultimately determine, is what his involvement was and what his culpability was. But, I believe that he's trying to fool everybody into believing that his condition is much worse than it actually is. I believe that. I don't believe it's as worse as his legal team wants us to think that it is. I mean, you can tell that there's clearly something going on with him, because he's an old man. He's literally in his 80s. I believe that maybe there are early signs of Alzheimer's. If you look at his physical condition, if you just look at the look in his eyes, I don't believe he's a good enough actor to just put that on. So I do believe that there is some sort of cognitive decline, and there were signs that Erika noticed, and there were signs that other people started to notice. But again, I don't believe it's as severe as his legal team is trying to make it out to be. And I think even on some level, Erika believes that he's in this type of cognitive decline, because it's probably easier than to believe the alternative, which is likely the reality, being that her husband screwed over innocent people, funded her lavish lifestyle with money that he stole, and is now continuing to even con her by exaggerating his own condition, probably knowing that she's having to answer for this publicly. Like, think of how sick and twisted that has to be, right? If this really is what he's doing. This is all hypothetical. This is all my own speculation. But if he's really trying to deceive everybody into believing that his condition is as advanced as it is, because now a government expert has determined that it's probably not what they're claiming that it is, I do believe that there is some mental decline, again, just because of his age and his physical condition, that there's no way his mental condition is also not deteriorating. But think about it. A man that's smart enough to keep this scheme going for nearly 30, 40 years, multiple decades, he knows that Erika's on television. He knows that Erika's a public figure, and he knows that there are going to be questions of her. So if he continues to play this game with her, he knows whether or not, and this is where I think Edelson has this theory that Erika's the front woman of the scheme, and they're using her to kind of paint this picture. I don't believe she's complicit in painting the picture, but I do believe that there is a level of con that's still going on there. And so I don't believe that she's covering up for him, but I can believe that maybe he's even trying to manipulate her a bit and play it up a little bit more. Maybe he's even starting to buy into it himself. I don't know. But I don't think that she's covering for him. She has no reason to cover for him at this point. He's not still giving her money. She had to rebuild and get back on her own 2 feet without him. I'm pretty sure there's some sense of loyalty that she feels for the life that he was able to provide for her. But like, think of like the juxtaposition of being like, I'm grateful for this lifestyle that you gave me, this life that you gave me, but now I have to realize that a lot of this potentially was spent with people's stolen money. It is conflicting internally. And so I think for her, it's easier to believe, okay, I really want to believe that he is in this mental decline and he really is unfit to stand trial, because at least if I believe that and I buy into this, it kind of lessens the reality. It softens the reality and softens the blow of what this potentially is, which is just one big unfortunate situation. I do know that from what we've seen reported so far, it looks like she's working with the trustee to settle the debt that is owed. Obviously, we know that there were a lot of bills that Tom was running. He gave her an Amex that he was paying for with company money, and all of those expenses he was then writing off in the tax returns as loans. So there is money that they are going to try to get from her. And from what I've seen reported so far, it looks like she's working with the trustee to settle on those debts. She's likely going to have to deal with the tax mess next as well. So we'll see. She has a long road ahead of her, but at least it looks like there's going to be some closure. The clients are starting to get paid back. The victims are starting to get paid back. The orphans and widows have already been paid back. we again don't see that reported, but they have already received their money. Edelson is fighting for more money. So we'll continue to see it play out, and I'll continue to keep you posted. But at least for now, that's where it stands. I'm curious what your thoughts are. So let me know how you're feeling about this. Do you think that his legal team, now that they're likely going to file their own motion, do you think they're going to be able to prove their case that he's not competent to stand trial? Do you think he'll ultimately end up standing trial? And what do you think about, Erika's position in all of this? I'm very, very, very curious to know.